Children look to their parents for protection and sustenance. But what if their parents have no home? There are now over 22,000 homeless children here in Maryland. In Montgomery County, on any given night, more than 1,100 people are sleeping in shelters or other temporary quarters, and 23% of those are children. Imagine being one of those children. Interfaith Works and the Green Tree Shelter are two organizations that provide a roof, food, and support services for impoverished children and their parents. In this first episode of a two-part series, we'll meet them and take a look at how they provide these and other services. So stay with us here on Studio 501c3. Welcome to Studio 501c3. I'm your host, Pamela Wilkins. Between 2006 and 2010, the number of homeless children in Maryland increased by 81%. Montgomery County has responded by increasing the amount of housing available for impoverished people, but sadly, it's not enough. Marie Henderson, Executive Director of Interfaith Works, is here to tell us how her organization is working to help those with no crib for a bed. Marie, thank you so much for joining us on the show.
Thanks, Pamela.
Great. Listen, tell us about Interfaith Works, how it's organized, and the services that are provided to the community.
Sure. So Interfaith Works is one of the largest social service agencies here in the county. We've been around for just over 40 years this year. So we actually have three main components to our services. Homeless services, which involves everything from emergency services to permanent and supportive housing. Then we have our family services, where we run a clothing center here in the county and a family mentoring program called Friends in Action. And then we have emergency services, where we give out grants and loans to families who are on the edge.
Now, speaking of families that are on the edge, what have you seen in terms of trends in recent years in terms of the demand for homelessness services?
Well, the services definitely have increased over the last probably 5 or 6 years. Going along with the recession. There have been huge demand at our clothing center, where we provide support for families. There have been huge waiting lists for permanent supportive housing here in the county. Every single program that we actually offer, there's been a higher demand for services.
Now, what percentage of your clientele is children, and approximately what age is average for a homeless child?
Well, the approximate age for a homeless child here in the county is about 9. And, you know, on any given night, there are about 1,100 people who are homeless, and a third of them are actually your children.
Well, that's incredible.
Yeah,
to think
it's a staggering number.
Right, it truly is.
Yeah.
Now, can you give us an example of the types of circumstances that then cause a family to suddenly find itself homeless?
That's a really good question, because people don't really understand, well, how does one just become homeless? And many times, particularly for families, it's because they become unemployed or they're underemployed. So it may be that one person in the household loses their job, or both of them, or if there's only one person in the household, they've lost their job. And so they, charge up their credit cards, they reach out to even our emergency program, they ask relatives, and finally they just are tapped out of resources, and they may end up couch surfing, and then finally end up in one of the family shelters where they just need support. So it's usually a cycle, and it takes someone a while to become homeless.
So let's put ourselves in the shoes of the homeless child. I mean, what have you seen in the way that they react and how much they understand about what's going on here?
Well, that's interesting, and I talk about that many times. I think the families try to shield the child from what's happening. And so if they come to our clothing store, it's set up like a retail store. So they think, oh, we're just shopping. They don't realize that it's free stuff. And the reason the mother's coming there is because she has, so much money. So she can't afford shoes and food. But she'll come to our program where she can get some shoes for her child and that way be able to afford food. So they try to shield the children. But I mean, statistically speaking, homeless children are at risk for emotional abuse, physical abuse, just because of the stress. Imagine living in a shelter, you're 9 years old, there are 300 other people there. It just puts them behind socially and emotionally and even physically in every sense of the matter.
Now, I think a lot of people assume that homeless people don't work. And that's not true, is it?
That is not true. I'm glad you asked that question. In fact, 25% of homeless people actually work. We have many women and men who live in our shelters who get up every morning and go to work. They can't afford their own place. There's a huge gap between what they're making and what it costs to live in this county. So our job is to try to help them support and figure out how to become better employed so they can actually live on their own and be reunited with their families if they were separated from them.
Mm-hmm. Now, homeless children, I guess, do quite a bit of moving around. Mm-hmm. How long does it take typically for a family to find you, and how are they referred to you?
That's a good question. So they actually come to us many times through the crisis center here through the county, or they'll come through our homeless day program called Community Vision, where we provide breakfast and lunch, and there's another agency that provides dinner. So many times families who are on the edge will come there to get free meals and learn about our other programming. And so we'll try to transition them through any of our services, whether that's vocational services or mentoring, GED classes. We'll meet them at that center at Community Vision and try to figure out what services they need to support that family and then offer those services to them.
Mm-hmm. That is fantastic, because going back to the employment issue, and mm-hmm. you're just talking about that, because you're employed doesn't mean that you're earning enough. Mm-hmm. And I understand that a maximum of 30% of mm-hmm. a family's income should be then reserved for keeping the roof over the head. Mm-hmm. But in so many cases, particularly in this exceedingly expensive county, mm-hmm. it's way in excess of that.
It is.
So what is the county doing, do you know, in terms of trying to alleviate that situation?
Well, they're trying to offer more affordable housing. And in fact, Montgomery County has a rule that new housing developments, I think 12% of the housing has to be affordable housing. But that's not enough. Right now, there are about 17,000 folks who are on the waiting list for affordable housing in this county. And I think about 300 or 400 people actually come off the rolls each year. Mm-hmm. So imagine being on this wait list. That's how you become homeless. You've been waiting for affordable housing, but you're number 15,000, and there's 17,000 people, 17,000 people on the list.
Right.
So it's a serious problem.
It certainly is. Mm-hmm. Now, you talked a little bit about what we call the ICC, which mm-hmm. in your parlance then is the Interfaith Clothing Center. Right. About how many people do you serve?
Yeah, so it's about 17,000 folks that come through there, and that translates into about 6,000 families. Uh-huh. And they can come and shop year-round. They usually can come once a month, and we'll provide them with clothing, school supplies. We actually do a backpack program every year so that children can start the year like every other child in the county with all the supplies they need. We have small household appliances, and we actually also have someone there that will help them with other resources, because often if you're coming for used shoes, you probably need some other assistance. Mm-hmm. So we have staff on hand to help them with other county services.
Okay, that's excellent. And actually later in the program, we're going to be looking at the ICC in some detail.
It's one of our biggest programs, and it makes a huge difference, particularly to that family that's struggling. Mm-hmm. How do you get food and shoes? Well, mm-hmm. that's where Interfaith Works comes into play.
Great. Now, funding, as per usual around this region and around the country, is at a premium. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure that homelessness services have suffered mightily. Mm-hmm. Can you tell us a little bit about what you're seeing in terms of donations, assistance from federal, state, and local sources? What's going on there?
Well, that's a good question. So most of our funding that comes from the state and from the county has been flat for a number of years. Mm-hmm. So we appreciate that amount, but there's nothing to help with the increase. Every year, the kitchen gets older, there's things you need to fix and support in that household. Mm-hmm. So Interfaith Works has had to do a really good job about figuring out how to do more fundraising and to meet those dollars that we receive from the county. Mm-hmm. Right now, we raise about $1.25 to every dollar we receive from the county. Mm-hmm. So we are reaching out to congregations and individuals, trying to let them know that homelessness is a serious problem. It's affecting children here in the county, and asking for their support.
Well, you all are doing incredible work with that. Thank you so very much, Marie. We really appreciate you being on the show today.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
To contact Interfaith Works, go to their website at iworksmc.org. When we come back, we'll take a closer look at how homeless children can, with our help, be provided with a safe place to live and grow. So stay with us here on Studio 501c3.
Have you heard the news? Montgomery Community Media has a brand new website at mymcmedia.org. Now it's easier than ever to stream and watch all your favorite local shows. Keep up to date with county voices and events. Sign up for TV production and social media classes. All this and much more. See what's new at mymcmedia.org. Don't just watch media, make it happen.
"7,000 high school students drop out every school day. That's a line of desks more than 4 miles long. We can keep students in school. Visit boostup.org and take the first step.
Welcome back. Monica Barberis-Young is Program Director of the Interfaith Housing Coalition, managing the placement of homeless clients into living quarters. We caught up with her at a home being readied for a family with several children.
This property belongs to a stock of scattered site properties that is owned by Interfaith Housing Coalition, which is a program of Interfaith Works in Montgomery County. The property is one of 25 properties that we take in our inventory to be part of the continuum of care of Montgomery County, which means that the families that qualify for the program are families in need, working poor, residents of the county who find themselves homeless. And so there's a single point of entry for housing in the county, and that's the Crisis Center at Health and Human Services. And when they go apply, after assessment and due diligence on their part, they refer to us. We have to have the right size of family with the right size number of children to come in. So a federal law establishes that 2 kids per room, and we try to do that. But you know, most of our stock is modern construction, which really doesn't give us the room sometimes for 2 kids in a room. So it's really up to our discretion and the age of the kids and the issues that the kids have to make sure that this is a comfortable home. So it's nothing unusual to see a family. In this particular case, in this 3-bedroom house, we'll have probably 3 to 4 children. Most of the time, just a single head of household, which means either a mother or a father. It's exciting. It's very exciting for them, and it's exciting for us because we make every effort to provide a home, and this is what we tell them. There are, of course, many strings attached to this little process because they need to meet a lot of rules and they need to follow a lot of rules, and they're very much briefed for about 2 weeks, a period of 2 weeks, as to what the responsibility of having a home is. But the most important piece, I think, it is to be part of our supportive services crew, which is really case management is what it entitles to. We have an amazing crew of case workers who we do provide intensive case management. And when I said intensive, it's just like being part of your life, you know, counting you in the good times and in the bad times, but also calling us when there's something that we can do for them. So we're really providing them with as many tools as we can so they can be just like you and me. Good parents, productive parents, and most importantly, we're trying to break the crazy cycle of just homelessness and poverty.
Imagine being a working parent who still cannot afford to have a safe place to live with your child. Shankia Warren is a young working mother with a 2-year-old son who has suffered through homelessness, but with the assistance of the Green Tree Shelter and through her own hard work, she is building a new life for herself and her young child. She agreed to meet with us and show us her new home that provides her son a safe and nurturing place to grow.
Well, I was living with my friend. Everything was fine. You know, I was working. I maintained a job, you know. I provided as well for my son and also the household I was staying at. Eventually, it led to layoff. You know, I got laid off from my job. My friend, unfortunately, who doesn't have any kids or any responsibility but herself, was, you know, helping me out, supporting me, herself, my son. I was unemployed for about 2 months, and, you know, that even put a more burden to my situation that was already, you know, making it overwhelming for me. And it just got, at that time, I didn't know what else to do. For a while, I was staying with friends, family, moving around, and that's not really stable for a child, not even for me. It's hard to, you know, even if I did have work and wanted to apply somewhere else, it's like, what's your address? You know, where do you stay? I was working, I couldn't afford market rent. It was very overwhelming for me, very. When I eventually found my way to Green Tree, it was scary. I was nervous. Like I said, it's the first situation for anybody. You know, you never know what's going to happen. You don't know where you're going to end up. You don't know. It was scary for me. London's experience, which is my son, his experience there was wonderful. Of course, he's young, so for him, it was just a happy place for him every day. They provided daycare for him. He enjoyed the staff there as well as his child care providers. It was wonderful for him. I never really had a bad day with him there. I am continuing working. I'm maintaining a job, employment, yay for me. I do go to school. I am a full-time student. I also do take classes online, as well as being a full-time mom, which is always great and always an adventure every day. When you feel like you're doing all the right things, you're taking care of your household, you and your child, you're working, going to work every day, you're on time, you're doing this. The bills that you do have that are small, you're paying that. And one simple layoff, the life that you knew is gone. It's all gone.
The National Center for Children and Families in Bethesda operates the Green Tree Shelter, which serves as a transitional residence for homeless families, primarily children with single mothers, and provides the basic support systems necessary for families to rebuild their lives. Tanya Fullwood is the Family Services Division Manager with the National Center. We caught up with her at the Green Tree Shelter, where she agreed to give us some insight into the experiences of homeless children and how the shelter helps them to cope. Tanya, thank you so much for joining us on the show. We really appreciate you sharing your perspectives with us. The National Center for Children and Families offers an array of services. Now, we're focusing on childhood homelessness today. So can you tell us the types of services that you offer to the children?
The National Center for Children and Families has a Green Tree Shelter. In the Green Tree Shelter, it is the largest shelter in Montgomery County for homeless families. We typically have residential services that we provide, which is 24-hour staff on site. We have case management, parent education, life skills, advocacy. We provide transportation, child care assistance, and a huge community support, material support. We get cribs, we get baby formula, baby food, clothing, furniture, computers, so that our residents can come back and they can always have something to pull from. So we make sure that our adults and our children have what they need while they're in shelter.
Now, you mentioned adults and children.
Yes.
What percentage approximately of the residents here are currently children?
Currently, we have 63% that are children. Typically, it's about 25, 27 children who reside in shelter with their parent. We typically serve the average age of 6, and that's a huge age for cognitive development and social development in the shelter.
So what is the typical family structure that you see here?
Typically, it's a mom and 1 or 2 kids. We do have intact families, mom's dad, and we are seeing a huge number of single dads with their kids right now.
Now, I know that you do provide transitional housing,
Yes.
and that's certainly a wonderful start, but it's not the whole story. One of the things that's particularly special about the National Center and Green Tree Shelter is the comprehensive nature of the services and the case management. Can you describe to us what the case management entails?
Case management is the heart of any service that we provide. When a family enters into shelter, the first day, the case manager makes sure that they do a comprehensive assessment to identify any barriers. Barriers include substance abuse, they could be unemployment, mental health, child welfare issues. So the services range, but the case management is the heart of what we do at the shelter. We need to make sure that that family gets exactly what they need to address their barriers so that they can move on and get stable housing for their children. Green Tree Shelter provides on-site childcare for the residents in the Green Tree Shelter. We want to make sure that the families or the parents, the adults, can do job searches. They can do employment readiness skills. They can do house hunting as well. They can do their housing searches. And that we provide a safe environment that they can trust, where their child is still getting the developmental skills that they need while they're out in the community doing what they need to do to progress. All of our staff are licensed to provide child care. We provide daily schedules and daily routines so that they stay on task. We do developmental assessments to make sure that they are growing appropriately, and we follow the Maryland state guidelines for child care.
How prevalent are substance abuse or mental health issues among the families that you have here, and what are the services specifically designed to help those situations?
Wow, mental health and substance abuse probably affect about 60% of our population. Those things we want to make sure that we address. They come to us with mental health issues that have never been addressed, never been diagnosed, that they've never been treated for. We have an on-site therapist on staff, and we also have a psychiatrist, so we can make sure that those barriers get addressed. For substance abuse, we do an assessment with the county, so we refer them out to have a substance abuse assessment, refer them to a program so that they can get exactly what they need, because we want to make sure that we produce good parents. We want to make sure that we produce parents who are going to survive and be able to produce healthy children and develop healthy children.
But ironically, I think a lot of people have this notion that mental health or substance abuse issues are the only reason or the primary reason for homelessness, and yet what we've discovered, particularly in this county, is that simply losing a job can be the trigger.
Absolutely. Losing your job can be a trigger. Losing relationships with your family because you don't have that community support anymore. So once they come into the county does do an assessment regarding those barriers, whether we can prevent the homelessness and eviction, or do we need to really send them to shelter to make sure that they need the wraparound services, the case management piece.
So what is the Family Stabilization Program?
The Family Stabilization Program is a 18 to 24-month supportive housing program that we have also in conjunction with the dwelling place. That partnership, we provide intensive case management as well, making sure that those families can get permanent supportive housing. So the transitional housing program, we increase their employability. We increase their parent education skills. We want to make sure once they transition from shelter that they go to that transitional housing program, they have enough time to sustain, to save, to build certain skills that they need to be stable in the community.
Now, you make deals with your residents, and the residents make deals with you in exchange for the services and the training and the preparation to go back into the community and rebuild the lives that they've lost. Tell us about that.
Relationship building is probably key. It is huge in terms of how you get those parents to buy in to their own program. So the case management piece again starts with, tell me what are the things that you need to work on. Tell me what your barriers are. Let's develop a plan so that you don't have these barriers again, so that this episode of homelessness does not happen to you and your family again. So yes, we make deals constantly. If you go to a county program to get employability skills, this is how we can help you move forward and gain that permanent housing. All day. We're dealing all day.
the big guy comes up to bat, hitting .342 with 92 RBIs and 36 homers. First pitch is fouled between
Chill raw and prepared foods promptly. 1 in 6 Americans will get sick from food poisoning this year. Keep your family safer. Check your steps at foodsafety.gov.
My life is full of statistics. Thing is, I could have dropped out of school and become one myself, but I didn't because I had people that believed in me. Here's another statistic. 7,000 students drop out every school day. That's 1 every 26 seconds. It's time that students know that we believe in them.
Inspire a student and share your message of support at boostup.org.
Have you heard the news? Montgomery Community Media has a brand new website. See what's new at mymcmedia.org. Don't just watch media, make it happen.
Having no home is a tragedy for anyone, but it is particularly devastating for a child. Think about how your own children would feel without a safe place to call home. And this problem is not going away. On our next episode, we'll look at the effect of homelessness on a child's physical and mental health. We'll also visit a clothing distribution center that enables people of very modest means to dress appropriately for work and for school. Thanks for watching. If you'd like to know more about our guests or about Montgomery Community Media, visit us online. I'm your host, Pamela Wilkins. We'll see you next time on Studio 501c3.